On pause because we all of a sudden have big football news right here in the state of Mississippi. This has clearly been a week where the focus on Mississippi State football has been on the death of Mike Leach, its former head football coach, and we have wondered but really not dived into deeply what would be next for Mississippi State. We talked with Mark Keenum yesterday and kind of gave him the opportunity without just trying to pin him down about what the next few weeks might look like in terms of head football coach, interim coach, athletics director, etc. We have an answer to that question now. First from Pete Thamel and then from Ross Dellinger. Mississippi State and defensive coordinator Zach Arnett have agreed to terms to make him the school's next head football coach. He is expected to receive a 4-year contract. So there you go. Uncertainty.
Zach Arnett runs a string of Chevrolet dealerships in Southern California.
Does he also sell bolo ties?
No, that's Rick Schaefer. You're getting them mixed up.
Zach Arnett is now Mississippi State's
I like this
head
as running joke potential. This has running joke potential. Every time you do it, Borky and I will tell you what that person does.
Yeah. What about Michael Borquet? What does he do?
We did a Borky thing once. It was like Mark Borky or something. It was his. He was in Advocare, as I recall.
If you remember correctly. So Pete Thamel has reported it. Haydad has confirmed it. Ross Dellinger has confirmed it. Robbie Falk has confirmed it. It's done. Zach Arnett is going to be the next head football coach for Mississippi State. He was put in charge of the program in the interim during that period of uncertainty between, Sunday at lunchtime and ultimately the passing of Mike Leach. And Mark Keenum, the president at Mississippi State, moving quickly on this decision. Initial reaction, Haydad, you and I talked on Sunday night, and certainly we're not ready to have a public conversation about what might be next, but that certainly is something that was lingering in the minds of Mississippi State fans. What are you going to do? What direction are you going to go? And I said to you at that time, doesn't it just feel like they're going to promote Zach Arnett? And you and I both hesitated after I said that out loud because there's a very limited body of work there. He is a career assistant. He's been a defensive coordinator at 2 places. He's 36 years old, but clearly Mark Keenum felt that stability and continuity were of the utmost of importance right now, and he has promoted Zach Arnett into this role of head football coach. Yeah.
When I've looked at Zach Arnett since he's been here at Mississippi State, I've thought this is a guy who's a future head football coach. I did not know that it would be at Mississippi State his first time. And obviously the circumstances are very unusual. What I will say is this. If you look at State the past few days, they've picked up some recruits. A couple guys out of the transfer portal. Rodarius Jones from Horn Lake, Mississippi originally. He was at LSU the past couple of years. He's committed. And then today, Kamari Rogers, 4-star cornerback last year out of Columbia, Mississippi, who was at Miami last year. Now he hit the portal, and now he's committed to Mississippi State. You don't commit without having some sort of idea of where things are going. My guess is, and it's just a guess, that there was already some inkling, some idea that this was going to go this way in the name of stability. And if remember when we talked about Joe Brady, and I'm not trying to compare Zach Arnett to Joe Brady because what Brady did with that LSU team was very, very special. But we talked about, maybe when you've got the bird in the hand, you just go ahead and go with it. Maybe State just feels like, hey, this guy is a future star head coach. Let's just go ahead and give him the job and take it from there. You need to get an experienced offensive coordinator in, I think. That needs to be the next, order of business because obviously when you bump Zach Arnett up off the staff, you get to gain a spot for an assistant. I would imagine they would just promote Mac Brock as the defensive coordinator, but that's probably just a thought right now. And obviously Arnett will still have a heavy hand in the defense. But that's the route State's chosen. I think it's good for stability. But it's obviously a gamble because this is a guy who's a first-time head coach.
Yeah.
So I want to throw this at you guys. A friend of the show, Cole Kubelik, throws out a suggestion for Zach Arnett to explore his play caller, Chris Hatcher. And if you're thinking, who's that guy? Well, he's got Samford, the Birmingham version, not the Palo Alto version, rolling right now as the head coach. And he played quarterback at Valdosta State under, you guessed it, Mike Leach as his offensive coordinator.
The other name I've heard thrown around a little bit is Seth Luttrell, the former head coach at North Texas, air raid guy. Guess who he played under at Oklahoma when he was the offensive coordinator? Mike Leach. I think you'll definitely continue to see a Mike Leach flavor to this offense for the next few years for sure.
So we are making an assumption, and I feel like everybody's kind of making an assumption that you got to go get another air raid guy. Here's what we don't know. We know that Zach Arnett worked under Mike Leach running the air raid. Mm-hmm. But we don't know how Zach Arnett really feels about the air raid offense and whether or not he believes that that is the direction that the program should go with offensive philosophy long term. This is going to be his program. So is that a safe assumption to make that, okay, he's got to go get an air raid guy. He's got to go get somebody with ties to Mike Leach, Hal Mumme, Valdosta State, Oklahoma, et cetera, and move forward with that?
Well, I would say that in terms of continuity with what you've got, think back to 2018, and State decided to make a change in their offensive philosophy. Moorhead's offense was similar to Mullins, but it was a lot more pass-heavy. And in doing that, you kind of threw away your chance for a big season because Fitzgerald just wasn't ready to run that kind of offense, wasn't capable of running that kind of offense. You can't do it again. You've got all these pieces in place to run an air raid style system. You bring in back all this talent and all this experience. You got to kind of roll how you got to kind of dance with who brung you at this point. So, and I think you find a more updated version of the air raid. Nobody runs what Mike Leach has been running the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Now you're going to find a guy, and you're bringing in the Parson kid in this signing class. So you're making a move towards more mobility there in the pocket or more of a running quarterback. But, yeah, I think you definitely want to try to keep the air raid principles in place here. You've been successful. You've won 8 games this year. You have a chance for 9. That's the way that I would go.
What do you think they'll do in terms of play calling for the bowl game?
Good question. My guess is for the bowl game only, it would either be Spurrier Jr. or Drew Hollingshead.
Okay.
That's the way I would look at it. Again, these are just guesses. I'm not sure.
I'm curious, and it's really, really early to even ask this question, but I wonder if for Mississippi State fans, you just had a sigh of relief after the sadness, the unsteadiness, the disappointment of this week, the trauma of this week. If stepping back and going, we heard people talking about this wasn't a great cycle to be going out and hiring a coach. National Signing Day is a week from today. The portal is open. Stability sounds so good right now.
Yeah. And you've got visitors coming in this weekend. Now you can sell them on what the future is at Mississippi State. Now you can go ahead and tell your signing class, we're all here. My guess is Arnett is going to keep a lot of this staff. I would be surprised to see any kind of wholesale changes. Like I said, maybe just bring in somebody to replace him, bump some people around. Stability is a good thing for Mississippi State. And like I said, you're rolling the dice on him as a coach. But he's been a good defensive coordinator for Mississippi State. If he can be a good recruiter and put the offense into good hands, he'll be fine.
I mean, it's been demonstrated with players returning and how they've done in the portal despite how this week has gone. Players appear to really like playing for him. I mean, guys that could have, like we mentioned, what do you think Nathaniel Watson could have commanded in the transfer portal in NIL money? A lot.
Yeah.
And
Cromedy, too.
I mean, those guys could have basically gone anywhere and chose to stay and play for Zach Arnett. So that is a first really good sign of what you've got leading your program now as a whole, instead of just that side of the ball, when players choose to not even create drama and not even put bids out there. I'm just going to play for this guy. Nothing else matters. It's a good sign.
Talk.fm and SuperTalk TV. So the question that I asked before the break was not a gotcha question. Like there was some intent with where I was going. So I said, I asked you as we were going to the break, is Zach Arnett ready for this opportunity? Is he ready to be a head football coach in the Southeastern Conference? The most unforgiving league that there is in the college sports landscape. Here's what I was going to point out. I know he was not the head coach of the entire team, but he was as close to being a head coach for half a team as there is in college football. Mike Leach did nothing as it pertains to the defense. And if you watched the Egg Bowl, there were multiple times where if you didn't know who the head coach was, you would assume that it was Zach Arnett. How often do you see an assistant coach almost out to the hashes on the field, not being pulled back by anyone? That's only what the head coach does. Talking directly to officials, trying to get an explanation. Zach Arnett looked like a head coach in that game against Ole Miss. Now, I don't know if television showed that. It may have been something where you had to be in the stadium to see it. But there were multiple occasions where he was out on the field. I'm talking halfway to the hash marks, yelling at officials, asking questions, animated. And again, there was nobody pulling him back. It's not like Mike Leach was grabbing his belt and pulling him back to the sideline saying, come on, man, that's my job. That defense was his. He ran that entire side of the ball with zero interruption. Now, of course, he and Mike Leach had conversations about defensive philosophy and what he was going to do and what was expected, but there was not much interaction on game day. Somebody points out that you can never really know if you're ready until you get thrown into the fire.
It's like being a parent. Yeah.
Cody in Tupelo says, I don't know if Zach Arnett is the answer in the long term, but dang, it feels like a boulder off state fans' shoulders to have Arnett as a stable coach. Stephen and Newton, I mean, is anyone ever ready to take on a role in this way? But I do believe he will be a strong leader that will demand respect in the program, which is important, in my opinion. Stephen and Newton says, Hail State.
And Chase pointed out, he's not saying that Mississippi State's going to start winning national championships in short order, but Kirby Smart didn't have head coach experience. Dan Lanning didn't either. Year one at Oregon went well. It's just as much about the person as it is the resume and experience. And I had somebody text me asking, did State rush this? And I said, they kind of had to. Signing day is 1 week from today.
6 days away.
Guys are in the portal right now that are taking visits and going on destinations. If there was going to be uncertainty that carried through Christmas, through New Year's, into January before an athletic director is hired, and then that athletic director would have to hire a football coach and go through all that, that would have set Mississippi State back so much in this calendar, which can impact you for multiple years even. So speed had to be something. It's uncomfortable to talk about because of why they had to operate quickly, but they had to operate quickly because if they didn't, things really could have gone south football-wise just as fast.
We get a question, hey, Dad, on the text line. Says, I'm assuming the new coach can go out and find transfers. Can anybody recruit his players?
What?
I think that is a reference to the insinuation that you were a terrible person if you were actively talking to anybody on the Mississippi State roster.
Whatever. Yeah, I would imagine, yes, it's open season business. So, but what I'm going to say is, every head coach, every successful head coach, Belichick, Saban, Smart, they were all a first-time head coach at some point. There was always a point in their career where we're taking a gamble on this guy. He's never been a head coach, and he got it done. And obviously there's plenty to go the other way. It didn't work. Anytime you make a hire, it's a gamble. So for Mississippi State, though, at least you have that stability now, and you have the word relief was just used. That's a good word. Now you feel like you're moving forward in the right direction. Everybody can get behind Zach Arnett, play the bowl game, recruit, and go forward.
Can you imagine the roller coaster of emotions for Zach Arnett over the last 72 to 96
hours? It's got to be incredible. Yeah.
I mean, just things spinning. We don't know anything about contract terms yet. The expectation is
it's a 4-year deal, but of course that's the state.
The big news of the day, and hey, Dad, were you tipped off on this at all? Did you expect that we were going to get an announcement today that Zach Arnett was going to be the next head football coach at Mississippi State?
Dr. Keenum came on this show yesterday. He could have just told us then. We could have just gotten this out of the way.
Yeah.
So, no, I had no inkling that this was about to happen.
With half an hour to process this news and kind of think through it a little bit during commercial breaks and whatever else, what you think?
I leaned more towards it was the right move than anything else. I think right now this football program just needs to some stability, somebody to lead, somebody to rally around. You've got recruiting going on right now. National Signing Day is 6 days away. You can't just punt on that. You've got recruits and transfer portal guys coming in this weekend. You can't just punt on that and tell them, well, we're hopeful to do this, that, or the other. You can't. So I like Arnett. I think he's a good coach. I'm always kind of iffy with defensive coaches because I always feel like they get the trigger finger. They want to go over there and tell the offense what to do too many times. I like getting an offensive coach like Leach who just says, you run the defense and I'll handle this. So that's always an iffy thing for me. But I think Arnett is a good coach. I think he was going to be a head coach down the road. He just gets his opportunity a little earlier than we would have thought.
The circumstances are clearly unique, right? And not the circumstances by which Zach Arnett would have wanted his first head coaching opportunity, but you are reminded that sometimes not jumping at the first thing that comes along turns out to be good in the long term. Right, the opportunity to go to LSU a couple of years ago was there. We think chose not to jump onto that sinking ship, which was a good decision. Who knows where Zach Arnett would be today because of the bouncing from one place to another, which is what happens with so many coaches because the first opportunity they get to make a jump, they do it. I look. I had somebody tell me this, and I don't know how to verify it. But I don't mind saying it because it was somebody that I trust that told me. Zach Arnett was not just in the running to be Auburn's defensive coordinator. Auburn thought they were going to hire him to be his defensive coordinator, to be their defensive coordinator. Only to find out that there was a pretty significant buyout in Zach Arnett's contract. Hey, Dad, I don't know if you knew that or not. We knew that he got a pretty big bump, a pretty big raise from Mississippi State. It's rare, though, that you see, if the number I'm told is true, a buyout that's anywhere close to as big as what Zach Arnett had in his deal.
It's about $2 million, right?
I was told 3, but 2 may be the number.
Between $2 and $3 million. Yeah, the State wanted to keep Zach Arnett. They knew he was a big piece of what was going to make Mississippi State successful going forward. The team of Mike Leach and Zach Arnett. So
and so even Auburn, who spends money like a drunken sailor on coaching buyouts all the time, was like, wait, what? A defensive coordinator that's got a $2 or $3 million buyout? Nah, I don't know if we're going to do that.
Auburn's hubris is unmatched. It really is. I love yourself the way Auburn loves themselves. Seriously. There's your mental health note of the day. Or find somebody that loves you the way Auburn loves themselves. They are convinced they are getting everybody. They were definitely getting Phil Longo from North Carolina. They were definitely getting Lane Kiffin from West. They're just going to get everybody. They're going to get every recruit. They're going to get everybody. Auburn is the best, according to people that cover Auburn and people that donate to Auburn and just fans of Auburn. And yet time after time after time, with the exception of buying, to their credit, a national championship via Cam Newton, who would have won one in Starkville if he ended up there. It's a sore wound, I'm sorry. But where does that hubris come from? You share a state with Alabama, who dominates college football and wins championships after Cam Newton played college football. And you've done what? You fired Gus Malzahn. You fired Brian Harsin after a disaster of a coaching search. You went after Lane Kiffin. He told you no, so you hire Hugh Freeze, and you have to put in the guy's contract, you cannot be on Twitter. You handed your $130 million a year business, which is what it is, to a guy that can't be trusted with Twitter. And yet you think you're getting everything you want whenever you want it. Auburn's a chihuahua. You ever been around a chihuahua? They are nasty dogs. They are violent dogs, but they're so small, they're just annoying. But inside, they think they are big, tough, and evil. Auburn football is a chihuahua.